Sisko still has his German lederhosen hat. Quark feeds a Vulcan jumbo Romulan mollusks, and Jake and Nog are watching the women coming off the Bajoran transport at Docking Bay 1. Hey, everybody, and welcome to the Seventh Rule with Cirroc Lofton.
Hello, everybody.
My name is Ryan T. Husk, and today we are doing a review of Deep Space Nine, Season 2, Episode 20, the Maquis Part One, which is when it really starts getting good. How are you, Cirroc?
I'm doing all right. That's a nice shirt you got on there. What is that, Romulan ale you're drinking on?
Yeah. A little bit of it. Well, it's kind of goes
illegal since
it goes
when?
on forever. Since the 2280s. Yeah. So, did you catch that mention of Jake and Nog checking out the Bajoran women at Docking Bay 1?
Yes, on the Docking Bay 1.
Nice. Otis Redding over here, ladies and gentlemen.
Otis Redding, yes. Thank you.
One of the best, most beautiful songs of all time. Good knowledge.
Absolutely. But yeah, I caught that notice and actually wrote down one of your catchphrase coined terms, the non-appearance mention.
Yes, it was a double this time. You're right.
Yeah, so I was like, I actually wrote down Nam. Comes out to Nam, right?
Back at Nam.
I fought Nam. But yeah, so I wrote that down. I was like, okay. At first, I thought I was going to actually be in this episode because when Sisko walks into the quarters, he's like, Jake.
Yeah.
And I'm expecting to see myself, so I was kind of so I guess it is an appearance mention because I'm actually in it. But no, It turned out it was a non-appearance, and my dad goes and checks up on me. He's like, all right, I don't trust you. Dukat, let me find out. Where's my son?
I thought that was a really nice touch because he wasn't just like, well, I don't trust you. Or like it actually showed him while they're having the conversation, checking in, calling Kira to find him. Although I did wonder, can't Sisko just be like, computer, locate Jake?
That's what I was thinking.
Instead, he's like, nah, Kira, go locate Jake. She's like, okay. I mean, I can ask the question just like you can. But then when she does say, Jake and Nog, they're watching the Bajoran women coming out of the transport Docking Bay 1, she kind of gets stern. She goes, do you want me to have him sent to you? Like she thinks he's in trouble. She thinks you're in trouble there, man.
I know. And, I thought about why he would call Kira too, because I thought the same thing. Wouldn't he just be able to either just contact me directly and say, Jake, where are you? And then I'd say, hey, Dad, I'm over here. Something like that, where he could have had a direct comm to me. He could have asked the computer directly, where am I? But instead, he went to go ask Kira, and I actually had a thought about that. The way they wrote it into the scene, Dukat, I think, fears that Sisko is turning him in, right? You're not supposed to be on the ship. How'd you get in here? You snuck into my quarters.
Right.
And I think the Kira part, the way they wrote the line, which I thought was clever, was almost like, I'm about to tell on you. And I'm going to tell on you to the person that you hate the most, right? The Bajoran who's been fighting you for her whole life. So somebody you know very well, right? So I think that was part of the reason. Because he actually looks over and gives a look over to Sisko like, hey, don't turn me in. Let's talk. I came here to talk to you. Then Sisko gives him the look like, I'm not calling to turn you in. I'm calling to find out where my son is. Because I don't trust you.
Yeah. So we get non-appearance mentions from Jake and Nog, and we get a surprise appearance from Dukat. But before we get into Dukat too much, because he had some great moments, just to finish up on the Jake and Nog thing, this happens pretty often. And we talk about it where even if we don't see you guys, not only do they mention you, but they also give details about what you're doing. Like Jake is studying this thing with that lady, or Nog is getting into trouble with this, or Jake and Nog are over on the promenade checking out the Bajoran women. So it's not just a mention, but it's continued storytelling. So even if we don't see your face, the story arc of Jake and Nog and the ballad of Jake and Nog lives on in every episode. And I think that's just so cool. And he also mentioned to you when Cal Hudson shows up.
Right.
We're going to talk about a lot. Bernie Casey, yeah.
Yeah.
Man, that's one of my favorite characters. That two-part, two-off characters in Deep Space Nine, and you'll see why. But yeah, he mentions Jake Sisko when he's first talking to him. He says, "How's
Right.
Jake doing?" and all that. Really good moments. So we already kind of scribbled down the Jake gets a NAM there, but then it was expanded upon later.
Yeah, and I guess somebody who's always going to get a NAM is Curzon, right? Because he's never going to really appear, but he does get mentions a lot, and we never really point that.
You're so right. We should totally have been, because
counting it. Yeah,
we do see him once in one of the first season episodes. If you remember, when it just shows the old man getting the trill taken out of him and put into Dax. But other than that, you're right. It's all NAMs for him. It's like 40 NAMs.
Yeah. And so this episode also had a Curzon NAM, which was the kind of really good exchange that they had with Commander Hudson and Sisko, talking about their past exchanges. He's like, basically, that's one of the guys over there that looks like a hot chick in the front. And he knows all my dirt and all my stories, all my locker room stories. How awkward is that for you, And so I like that little conversation too. It showed their history going back and kind of the position that Sisko's in, having to have to deal with Dax in these kinds of ways, right?
Yeah, right. I believe the exact quote he says is, "That woman knows more about me than any other woman ever has." And he didn't say it in a good way, right? He's just like,
yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. But Sisko's kind of like, "Don't worry, she's cool, man.
She's cool. Don't worry about it." And then they laughed when he was like, "You're not sleeping with her." I think there was something to that effect. Right?
Yeah. He's like, "You guys aren't." And he's like, no. And
they both start laughing like, that would be weird. That would be totally weird.
And then they all and then they both stop and they're like, but maybe. No.
Then the scene, the whole show opens, not to get too far away, but it does open with the kind of banter between Dax and Kira, right? They're talking boyfriend or dating stories. They're sharing their own girl talk, right?
Right. And that was kind of like a two-part feeling for me. Number one is, it's always fun and interesting to see the interplay between two characters, and especially when they're talking about a guy with a brain twice the size of a regular one and a transparent skull. And
size matters, clearly.
But then also that it didn't pass that Bechdel test, that Bechdel test that they're talking about, that we were talking about in the past when we had the ladies episode, clearly doesn't, because that basically covers almost the whole thing. They're almost only strictly talking about, a dude or their dating life. And I was like, okay, that's when you're dating yourself as a 90s show, is when that's the only thing there. But at least it was fun. It was interesting. It mentioned what the alien Gallimites have transparent skulls.
Have we seen those Gallimites in any episodes?
I don't think so. I could be wrong, and I'd love to know that I'm wrong in the comments below, and people would love to tell me I'm wrong. So we welcome it.
Yeah.
I don't remember seeing something with a giant transparent head. And then, of course, Kira does the last blow where she says, "Well, I'm not the one that dates Ferengis."
Yeah. She threw that in there. The other line I like that Kira dropped was, Dex says to her, "He's got a brain twice the size of yours or mine." She's like, "I know, I've seen it."
Yeah. Yeah. At least it's fun banter, and we enjoy it. And
it's fun, but it is a little dated because it's a little bit too, I guess, stereotype of what girl talk would be, right? But they carried it well, and like you said, it just shows us that conversations are happening on the station that are not just how much energy does the photons have, or what kind of power is the shields running on right now. So they're having other conversations besides just work related stuff, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And that's what's good about seeing the characters kind of interact and have these kinds of moments between each other.
They also mentioned, like the first thing that they mentioned practically was one of my favorite aliens. And this is where my nerdiness shows, because you're a nerd if you have favorite aliens. But they mentioned we have an incoming Bullion vessel, and I love Bullions. Bullions are one of my favorites. They're the blue guys with the bisecting thing, like what Mr. Mott the Barber was in that thing that mentioned in Picard. Another one was also mentioned in this episode, like my two of my top three favorite aliens, Bullions, and another one that was mentioned was Uridians. And Uridians, I feel like I saw them more Next Generation. They're the guys that kind of look like they have really wrinkled up prune faces, and they are information smugglers. And
now, what the Uridians? That was the Vulcan character talking with Quark. Is that who mentioned the?
Yeah, right,
Uridians?
exactly. And they were like they were the go-between. Let me see, where was it? They were the go-between between Cardassians giving Bajoran troops weapons, but the go-betweens was the Bajoran extremists, but the go-between was the Uridians. They're like smugglers. So that was cool. It says Sisko that says we caught Cardassians shipping weapons to Bajoran extremists through a third party, the Uridians. They were also prominently featured. One was in a Next Generation episode, The Gambit Part One in the 7th season, one of my favorite episodes, and it was played by James Cromwell. And I love James Cromwell, and he played it really well. Anyway, we're getting off track, but those are two of my favorite aliens because I'm a big nerd.
The Uridians and the Bullions.
Bullions, yeah. And so they just got mentions once, so did Gallimites, but who cares about Gallimites?
Yeah, who cares about Gallimites?
We never seen one before. What do we care? So anyway, moving forward, Bernie Casey shows up as Cal Hudson. This is something that I've been told a few times by a few different people, is that people love to notice and poke fun at where Cal Hudson wears his comm badge. Apparently it's so far over to the side that
yeah.
Did you notice that?
Well, you know what I noticed? Because he actually has really broad shoulders. Right. And I noticed how the uniform was fitting on his shoulders. Like, it was far apart. So I noticed that his shoulders were really wide. And I was trying to maybe attribute that to the location of the comm badge. But I did notice that he was having a hard time. It's a bit inside out.
Maybe he just has. Maybe you're right. Maybe it's just super broad shoulders, so anything looks farther out. Maybe that's all it is.
Yeah.
Apparently, it's really far out. I don't know. It wasn't too bad. I think maybe
it wasn't too bad, but I noticed him doing the same thing that most people do when they wear those uniforms. There's a tuck. And every time he got up, he would do his tucking and from seated position to stand up and tuck. And that's not just something that's he does. It's something that we see that all people pretty much in those uniforms are doing, right?
Right.
It's not the most comfortable thing to wear. But I think Bernie Casey, it's funny because when I saw him, I said, "Oh wow, he was on our show."
Everybody was, man.
Yeah, so it's always a good thing to see faces that you've seen on other things. I remember Bernie Casey from all type of old movies that I used to watch. One in particular was "I'm Gonna Get You, Sucker."
Yep, I knew that one was coming.
Yeah, that was one of my.
I feel like you said "get" though, and not "get."
No, I'm Gonna Get You, Sucker.
Okay, all right.
And it's a cult movie for those of you that don't know, and it was based in a certain time period. It's got Jim Brown in it, It's produced by the Wayans. I think Keenan Ivory Wayans is the
Right.
is the
That's
is
right.
the
But
lead.
I didn't know Jim Brown was in that. I had forgotten about that.
Yeah, Jim
The
Brown's
actual
in it.
football player?
The actual football player. Yeah.
Wow. Next thing you know,
Uh,
you're going to tell me O.J. Simpson was in movies.
no, he wasn't
Another
in
running
this
back.
one.
No, I'm just
But there was a lot of good actors in this movie, and it was a comedy, and it's just one of those movies that when you see it, you never forget it. It was just
right.
a real cult classic back in those days. And so when I
Especially just,
saw, yeah,
I was just going to say, especially with just a name like that, a title, it was like early 90s or something like that, I think. And it's just like you
yeah,
get that title and you're like, okay, I got to see what's going on here. Who would have the
yeah,
balls to have a title like that? It's just so out of the ordinary, you know?
yeah. So when I saw it, I was like, okay, that's the cat from. I'm going to get you some. I mean, he's also done, and I looked him up to check out his career. I mean, he's done the movies with Steven Seagal, Under Siege. He did another 48 Hours with Eddie
Hmm.
Murphy and Nick Nolte. I think he played the police captain in that movie where he was, pissed off about Eddie Murphy breaking up everything. So he's usually the voice of authority in the roles that he plays. He plays like a voice of authority, a police captain, a commander, an admiral. I also saw that he was on Sequest.
Oh, no
And
way.
yeah, he was on Sequest and Babylon 5.
Wow. A sci-fi guy, huh?
Yeah, so he might be one of the few actors that's had the trifecta of being on Sequest, Babylon 5, and Deep Space Nine.
Right. The only other Star Trek actor, I know there are a few Star Trek actors that were on Sequest. The only one I can think of offhand was Richard Hurd, who played Admiral Paris in Voyager. Um, he was in Sequest, but I don't remember what his character name was. But yeah, I didn't know that about Bernie. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, so he's one of the go-to actors during that period in time, and he has a really accomplished resume.
Hmm.
But I thought he did a great job as Commander Calvin Hudson. Um, it's a good thing to see another black man on the screen with Avery and kind of the two of them bouncing off of each other and watching their share these different performances together. I enjoyed watching that.
Yeah, and both of them high ranking, both of them in charge of their respective fields. They are the top of their respective food chains, you know.
Right.
Sisko is the commanding officer on Deep Space Nine and overseeing all of Bajor. Uh, uh, Cal Hudson is overseeing everything that's going on in the demilitarized zone, which has some really cool political stuff.
Yeah, and I thought that was interesting. They called it the demilitarized zone because I guess right now in current headlines, when we hear about the demilitarized zone, we think
Sure.
of North Korea, right?
Hmm.
The space between North and South Korea, and I just thought, wow, that's crazy. I know it's a terminology that's been used before North and South Korea, but in our minds now, when you hear it, it instantly kind of activates that because that's most recently the headline, right? But I just thought it was cool that they used this idea of the demilitarized zone and this idea of these factions that are under the guise of the Federation and Cardassian. We don't know exactly what's going on right now, but it seems as though they're acting under the banner of Federation and Cardassian, right?
Yeah, right. So it's like a really interesting situation in that, you know, Cardassians and Federation were at war together. And then you know, they had a ceasefire. They came to a non-aggression pact or a treaty. And part of that was that they have to create a line that says, okay, let's agree this is Federation space, this is Cardassian space. That's it. You know, we just have to create a line and stop the war. Well, the problem with that is that some of the planets that are in now Federation space were inhabited by Cardassians. And some of the planets that are now in Cardassian space are inhabited by Federation. So obviously those people on those planets are really unhappy about that because they're like, hey, I settled here. I plowed my land or I built my homes. And now suddenly this planet belongs to Cardassia. That's not what I wanted.
Yeah.
So it's a really interesting situation. And it's something that happens in the real world, you know, when peace treaties happen, sometimes people end up being displaced in a way like that, where they're suddenly in a different country than where they settled in. So it's a really interesting situation to where now you can sympathize with the Maquis. They are terrorists and they are the antagonists of these episodes, but we can understand why they're doing it is because they don't want to be under Cardassian rule.
Yeah, and so we're seeing this thing unfold right now, and it's interesting. We talked a little bit about Dukat, but I really enjoy Mark Alimo and his portrayal of Dukat.
Me too.
I think he does a really fantastic job, and he's very good at playing the balance of being a little bit of an asshole and also being a cool guy.
Right. Well, some people would say a little more than a little bit, but yeah.
Yeah.
But I see it's his character is so layered. There's so much depth to it. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's like you go back and forth in the same instance of loving and hating in the same scene. So, I thought it was funny when he started to look at the consoles of the little runabout they were on, and he was like, yeah, I know how to use this.
He's like, yeah, already. This ship's configuration and technology is years behind our Cardassian ones anyway.
Yeah, so trust me, I know. It's like the phaser button is here. Yeah, I know where the phaser button is. Just let me know when they're ready to go. So I just like the way he goes. It's just really good for that character. He's somebody where you feel like, okay, I have to trust him, even though I don't want to trust him. But I haven't really gotten a reason yet. But I'm looking for one.
Right. Kira just doesn't trust him ever, no matter what.
Well,
but
yeah, and he loves toying with her and making advances. But
so much good stuff there. Hey, we got to run to our break real quick, and then when we get back, I got like a ton of leftover trivioids that I want to go through because there are some good ones here. But we're going to take a quick break, and we'll be right back with the second segment of the Seventh Rule. Hey, everybody, and welcome back to the Seventh Rule with Cirroc Lofton. You might know him as Jake Sisko, or you might know him as Cirroc Lofton. My name is Ryan T. Husk, and we are doing our review of Deep Space Nine, Season 2, Episode 20, the Maquis Part 1, where it gets really, really good, and we're having a blast really quickly. So the trivioids, that we went with were Sisko and his German Lederhosen hat, which was...
Yeah, it was a German Lederhosen, and I actually drew a little picture of what I thought it looked like.
We got to see it.
It's funny because... it kind of looks a little like a Robin Hood hat. But here's my German Lederhosen. You see it?
Yeah. That's great. There's a little feather in there.
There's a little feather in there.
For those of you that can't see it really is telling the truth that it looks like a it looks like the hat that Picard wore in that Cupid episode where he became Robin Hood. It looks just like that.
Yeah, so that was what I thought of when he said the German Lederhosen. I said, that's funny. I still have that. And the way Avery or Captain Sisko said, I still have the hat.
Right.
The way he said it was just classic. It was he didn't put too much on it. He didn't throw it away too much, but he kind of just pointed at his head a little bit.
That little nuance there. You can actually picture it for a second,
Yeah, and that's exactly when the visualization popped right in my head when he did that little.
I was picturing him in those Lederhosen shorts, man, doing the little dance that we know with the beer and bratwurst.
I know.
So we also said Quark finds a Vulcan jumbo or feeds a Vulcan jumbo Romulan mollusk. We'll talk about that later. Jake and Nog, we already spoke about that. These were the ones that didn't make the cut, though. Sorry to say. Calvin Hudson graces Deep Space Nine with his presence. Quark gets a dinner date with a Vulcan, kind of in the same vein. Yeah. Dukat does some breaking and entering. We kind of covered that. He just kind of breaks in on them.
Yeah.
Cardassians have photographic memories, which I didn't know. Also,
Quark now, where did they say that part? The Cardassians have
in the ship. When they were in the ship, Sisko was like, that he was saying that's why he's got him locked out of the controls of the runabout is he said, I know that Cardassians are known for their photographic memories. So that's just kind of a little passing thing. We also, Uridians are the middlemen between the parties and Bajoran extremists. We know that. Gul Dukat swears on the lives of his 7 children. It was interesting.
Yeah, that was.
So there were a lot of really good ones. It's tough to narrow down to 3. So that's why these episodes start getting better and better right around here.
There were a lot of good ones. I thought that you would mention the cold Vulcan heart.
Yeah, that was a good one. Korg was really into it, but the Vulcan wasn't saying no. She was totally responsive to it, but maybe she's just trying to get him on her good side.
Now I'm watching the show again, and I'm realizing that Quark actually had more action than any other character.
So you're saying that Bashir needs to be taking lessons from him?
Yeah, he should be studying again. Because Quark he knows how to wine and dine. He pours a drink for you, and then leaves it there and says, "Be here whenever you want it."
And then he drinks it.
And then he drinks it.
The Vulcan port. By the way, port is my favorite drink in the world, but obviously we've never had Vulcan port.
Vulcan
so I did
port.
take a look at that.
I didn't realize that's what they were talking about.
Yeah, it's Vulcan port, whatever it was.
Yes, we used to serve port at the wine bar. Chocolate port is what we do for dessert. A lot of people like that.
Oh, yeah. We all know, Star Trek nerds know exactly who would like chocolate port. Say it with me, Deanna Troi. She's notorious for loving chocolate.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Like nobody else does, I guess.
Like nobody else's business. I wrote down something else. It was funny because when Dukat was hailing the other Cardassian ship that was in the demilitarized zone, I liked the way he was trying to get the guy's attention. Like, do you know do you know who I am? You better respond to this hail right here, man. And then he literally goes off and says, "It's the commander of the Second Order."
Yeah, and then he gives him this code.
And then he gives him his code. He's like,
it's really me, dude. It's really me.
So if you guys better, you'll be in trouble.
Right.
And then he was like, you know what? Actually, I'll just kill you myself.
I will pull the trigger myself if you don't recognize my voice right now. And
yeah, he had a real power trip in that moment.
It was great, though. It was a great moment, especially because Sisko just kind of was like, all right, I'll let you.
Yeah, Sisko's like, dude, you're doing what I was going to do. And I wanted to kill these Cardassians, but since you want to do it, all right.
Right. And it was also kind of a way for Sisko to test to see if Dukat was telling the truth. He's like, all right, let's see if you really do mean what you say. And I think Dukat definitely proved that he was being serious.
Yes, and that let me know and let the audience know that this wasn't a setup for Sisko. This was a truly like, hey, I'm trying to figure out what's going on here, and I need your help to do it. And this kind of revealed to us that his intentions were, he didn't have any kind of ulterior motives. He's really pissed off, and he really wants to know what's happening right here. Right. So I think that was the thing. Sisko kind of looks back like, okay, all right. Okay, so then you are telling the truth. The other thing that was interesting, and you mentioned it just a minute ago, was him revealing that he had 7 children.
Mm-hmm.
And I liked that moment because it let us know, one, he's a father. So I think Sisko he immediately has, just changes the way you perceive somebody when you know that they're a parent, right?
Right. Especially if it's an enemy. If it's an enemy, suddenly you're like, I really want to hate this guy, but it makes it a little bit harder to pull that trigger if we're ever at war.
And that also lent credence to what Dukat said earlier, which was, I would never attack your child,
That's a great point. I hadn't thought of that. Yeah.
Yeah,
right.
It lends credence to that because I got 7 kids of my own, and I wouldn't want anybody doing that. If you got a problem with me, take it up with me.
Right. Of course, you know that hate to say it, but with Cardassians, he
can never trust the Cardassian.
Right? Tomorrow he could be like, yeah, I got 13 kids. What happened to the what? I thought you said 7. Oh, did I? Yeah, 7. That's what it is.
Yes, 7 of them. So you can never fully trust, but I just thought it just added a little aspect that, whether it's true or not, it made it feel like he was being genuine and that he had, just as much skin in the game as anybody else, right?
Yeah, that's a great point. And it does the thing that that Mark Alimo as an actor and the Deep Space Nine writers as writers do so well, which is to give the enemy's character more depth and more relatability. So it makes it like impossible to hate him, which makes you want to hate him more because you're like, don't make me like you. Or, at least like Sisko's character and his enemies, that's what makes him such a great villain, is that he is so likable in some ways, and he is so personable and he is so smooth, which just makes them hate him more because they want to just be able to just hate him and kill him.
Yeah, but the other thing that you have to respect when you're talking about Dukat is that he's clever and intelligent. And, he's not a dummy. He's not an idiot. He's very clever. He's very intelligent. And you have to respect that when you deal with it.
Right.
Because if you underestimate that, you will get tricked. You will be deceived. So you better approach him with the sensitivity of knowing that this guy's not playing around. He's capable of anything. And he's an intelligent person who actually has reason. He uses reason. He's not an irrational person. Mm-hmm. He does function in the way of reason. Now, how he uses it to validate the bad that he does is up for debate. But he still uses reason as opposed to just a crazy psychopath who's like, yeah, I don't care. I'll kill anybody in my way.
Right.
The other thing I wanted to mention and it was really subtle, but I have to talk about it because it means a little bit to me. There was a moment where Sisko hits his comm badge and he says, "Sisko out." And it was really subtle, but it just reminded me. I was like, wait a minute, where have I heard that before?
I know.
Obama said it when he was in the White House and he was doing his goodbye at the Correspondents' Dinner. He said, "Obama out."
Really? I don't remember that. I actually thought of something else, but I'll tell you after you're done with this.
And the second time I heard about it was Kobe and his last game.
That's the one I thought we were going to. Yeah.
Yeah, and Obama did it after Kobe. Kobe did it first, I believe, when he said, "Mamba out."
Right. He addressed the crowd after his last game.
Right.
And then he said, "Mamba out," and everybody went
dropped the microphone, right? And then Obama did it after that in a kind of an homage, where he was at giving a speech at a Correspondence, and he gave his speech and he said, "Obama out." It was his last year, and he was basically saying, "I'm done," right?
Right.
And then now I'm hearing and I see Sisko out, and I'm thinking, did they?
Are they closet Star Trek fans?
Yeah, are they? As I really was thinking that, I was like, are they closet Star Trek fans? Did they secretly get that from there? Because I know that the Sisko out came way before, but I wonder where the other, just the terminology of Cirroc out, Ryan out, Sisko out, where it really becomes, where it begins. I'm sure it's in the military.
Well, yeah, definitely military, I would think. But now that you mention it, it's officially part of my headcanon that Kobe and Obama are and were Star Trek fans. Sorry, then nobody can convince me of otherwise now.
Yeah, I think they were. I really do. Well, I think Obama's come out and said it, as a matter of fact. I think he was listed as one of the people that
maybe
celebrities who are Star Trek fans.
I know that Pete Buttigieg definitely came out very strongly as a Star Trek fan, and somebody else did before that, and I can't remember who. They can remind us in the comments below, but there was another politician that said, I feel like it was a lady, that said that she was a big Star Trek fan too. Maybe it was a dude. I don't remember, but
yeah, I think People Magazine or Time Magazine published the 50 people that you would never know like Star Trek or something.
Really?
Yeah, and if I'm not mistaken, Obama was on that list. So I'm pretty convinced that he is. We know we know from the Nichelle Nichols story that Martin Luther King was at least aware of Star Trek, right? But I don't know if he was, right?
He's the biggest of all the fans, like as in like the most important and influential, I think.
Yeah.
You're right.
So, and also when we were doing DS9, we had several people come down to the set who were fans. Namely, one of them was Chelsea Clinton came to visit the set once.
Really?
She did, yeah. We also had who is now the king of Jordan, but at the time he was the prince.
Right. You know, he was actually in a Next Generation episode. Was it Next Generation? I'm trying to remember, but he was like a transporter chief in an episode.
Yeah, he did. He did a DS9 episode. Yeah.
Oh, maybe it was Deep Space Nine then. But he was such a huge fan that they're like, all right, you want to get some royalty on the bridge here or whatever?
Yeah. Well, he's got the real royalty.
Right.
But he's a very nice guy. He's a sweet guy. And I got to know him, and he threw a party for us afterwards, which is
no way. Where was it?
Only something a prince can do. It was at the Planet Hollywood in Beverly Hills, when there was a Planet Hollywood in Beverly Hills. And he rented out the Planet Hollywood, so it was closed for this DS9 party, and it was akin to a rap party. When you're at the end of the season, it was that kind of big of a deal.
Did he say something like, "Oh, I'll throw a few pennies for this shack," because he's very rich?
No, he's actually a humble guy, even though clearly he's very rich. But he was a very humble guy and very down to earth, and wanted to talk Star Trek. I mean,
that's so cool.
Yeah. But yeah, so that all came from the Sisko out, Mamba out, Obama out. I just wanted to put that out there that that kind of jumped out at me.
Huh. That's good stuff. So we've got 12 minutes left. There was another, there's just so much good stuff in this episode. And this is just where it starts getting really good. And there's all kinds of details everywhere. But we got another appearance from Gullah Veck. Remember how we talked about Gullah Veck a few episodes ago and how he keeps appearing in multiple episodes and in different Star Trek series? He was on the planet with Cal Hudson. He was kind of like Cal Hudson versus Gullah Veck in that courtroom drama scene,
Yes.
So there he goes. That's his appearance again. It's really cool to see kind of like a secondary Gull, not Gul Dukat, but like another one kind of getting some burn here and there,
Yeah, and what I gathered from watching that, I saw that just because you have the makeup on and you have all that stuff on doesn't mean that it's going to come across the same way. And he doesn't come across the same as Dukat. There's clearly personality differences. There's, I get more sense of authority and power coming from Dukat. Confidence, right. So just because two people are wearing the same outfit and have the same mask on doesn't mean that they're going to project the same energy or have the same kind of characteristics or personality traits.
Right.
So, I thought that was good to have them both there at the same time.
That's a great point. Yeah. I mean, you look at Garrick too. Very different kind of character. A little bit more maybe similar to Dukat in the smarminess and the sliminess, but very different. Then there was also, I think maybe Gul Madred was the guy in Chain of Command, parts 1 and 2. That's Next Generation. Then you have Damar, who's like Leggett, and then Gull and whatever. And he's very different. You're right. I mean, they find these really good actors that can just be like character actors and take it into this kind of extreme direction that goes through all that makeup.
Yeah. And the other thing, that kind of jumps out at me when I see Dukat and I see the function of how the Cardassians operate, kind of their protocol and, their Morandis operating. They remind me of the USSR. They remind me of the communist Russia. And that's the kind of feeling I see Dukat and I feel like he's Putin. like he's Vladimir Putin, essentially. You know?
Even though Putin wasn't part of communist Russia, but
no, he wasn't. But he still has
though,
has that confidence. He still carries himself with that
right.
bravado and that confidence, and he's coy and he's smug, and he has the same kind of mannerisms as a Dukat.
Right, right.
He uses that power, and there's a level of threat that comes from everything he does. Right, it's like, I wouldn't cross this guy. It's kind of a bad move for you.
There's a lot of weight behind what he's saying. Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah.
So I don't know what made me say that, but there is something there that reminds me of Cardassians are like the Russia.
Well, because you're thinking the same thing we're all thinking, that we want to see Vladimir Putin in a Cardassian makeup getup, right?
Riding a horse with no shirt.
Right, with no shirt.
That's exactly what I want to see.
With his neck ridges and just be like, we do not interfere in we do not, your elections, no problem.
I am just a simple tailor.
Yeah.
No, yes, I think that would be great. I'm sure that meme will one day make itself to the surface right there.
Speaking of, and this is not the most, our show isn't the most political, but sometimes there are some very obvious things. And one thing that jumped out at me too, along that vein, was the guy that got suicided. Remember?
Oh, yeah.
They're like, oh, yeah, he committed suicide. He got suicided.
Yeah, that happens in North Korea a lot too.
It happens a lot of places.
A lot of places. Yeah, he just killed himself right after he signed this confession.
Yeah, there was just so much stress he couldn't live with himself anymore. I guess that's what happens.
Yeah, I think they opened one of the scenes in the opening was them wrangling him. He was running around the corridors, and they wrangled him up and snatched him up. And I thought, wow, that's kind of brutal. Looked like a dog catcher almost.
Yeah, first he was meeting with the Vulcan lady, and she was saying, keep a low profile, would put you in this room or whatever. And then there were two people up on the higher level, the balcony level or whatever of the promenade, and they were looking down, and it was two, some alien race that I didn't recognize, but they never really came into play again. Maybe they will in the next episode. But then the next time we see him, he's getting captured.
Yeah, and that's not really anything to make light of, because there's a long-standing history of people caught in situations where they confess to things that they didn't do because of torture, because of pressures,
because of interrogation techniques. Even there are some TV shows out there right now on Netflix where they basically convince some kid to admit and confess to a crime that he didn't do just because he's, not a very intelligent guy and he's just trying to go back to school. He's like a high schooler, I'm not going to really talk too much about that, because some people, think differently or whatever.
Yeah.
It's very common. You're right.
Yeah. Well, the idea is, if you want all this to end, just agree that you did this, right? That's if you want this torturing to end, just say you did this. And most people are thinking, all right.
And then we'll let you go home.
And everything will be fine.
Yeah, we'll give you some Tic Tacs and some Wrigley's.
I'll talk to a few people. You'll be all right.
Yeah.
Serving a death penalty sentence. The other thing that I wanted to mention, and it was real subtle, but it was there. There was a line in the episode where they mentioned that the terrorists were taking credit for the terrorist act. I forgot the name of the terrorist group in this particular
one. Maquis and that.
It's the Maquis, yeah.
Right.
So they said, oh, yes, the Maquis have taken credit for their terrorist act. And it just made me think of when you hear the news and you hear about big terrorist events and you hear about, something happened here or something happened, tragic happened. Usually if you wait a couple of days, somebody takes credit for it in the realm of terrorism, right?
That's right. They claim it, yeah.
Yeah, so like a regular murderer doesn't go around and say, "Yeah, I killed that dude yesterday."
They're like, there's somebody that died. We're waiting for somebody to claim it.
Yeah, I'm taking credit.
Do you guys have any leads? No, they know who to call. We'll just sit here and wait for somebody to claim it.
Yeah, but for some reason, terrorists love taking credit. And that's because they have to advertise their terror, right? It's not about the actual terror itself. It's about getting notoriety from the terror. It's about people knowing that you did it, right?
That's exactly right. Well, and therein lies the definition of what it means to be a terrorist. A terrorist is very specifically not just an act of violence, but an act of violence with a political motive or a political demand. And so your demand isn't going to be met if they don't know that you did it, and
right.
So that's spot on. Yeah.
Yeah. So the power really comes in claiming credit for it.
And saying, so see what I can do.
Yeah, I did that. So you have to come talk to me about it if you have a problem. And, that's traditionally how terrorism functions, right? I mean, every time I see something major on television, on the news, somebody, Al-Qaeda claims credit. This guy claims credit. Right. And I could just see them all rushing to claim credit. No, I did it. No, you didn't do it. You just drove me there. I did it.
That does happen sometimes, is that multiple groups claim it, and it's up to, the people in charge to kind of say, all right, we got to figure out who did it, and part of that is with them giving specific details as to how it was carried out. Right. But you're right. Yeah, some people could be like, "Oh, that was a good one. Let's tell them we did that."
Yeah, we should take credit for that one.
Yeah, that's a good one.
So I just thought it was interesting that the idea of taking credit for terrorist act came up in this episode. So yeah, that's interesting. That usually is the case, right?
Right. And we've got just 2 minutes left. I see that towards the bottom of my notes that, he says a group is taking credit for the capture. They're calling themselves the Maquis, which is a really cool continuous storyline. We see it all over the place in Deep Space Nine. We see it in Next Generation, and it's the crux of what, how Voyager starts as well. So it's a really cool storyline. So I'm glad.
And I also noticed that we're picking up the pace on this show from these kind of contained episodes that are, all encompassed in one episode. So, the problem is solved and we go back to normal in an episode. And now it's starting to really get into this buildup of like, okay, we're about to, I feel war. Like I wrote down war in my notes, and I could just smell the war building up, right? You could just feel it. It's like, all right, this is going to be a misunderstanding here, or this is an overreaction here.
It keeps escalating, right?
Yeah, misinterpretation here, and it could just continue to escalate. And next thing you know, we got a war on our hands, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I like the buildup on that. It feels like, okay, now that DS9 is now facing its biggest, objective.
Right. Like its biggest, diplomatic conflict right now that it has since it started. Yeah.
Yeah. So I feel it bubbling, and it's getting exciting. That's why I gave this a lot of the things I gave a pass, because a lot of it has to be talked about.
Right. And it's a two-part episode. So we're okay with leaving, obviously it was left with Cal Hudson reveals himself as part of the Maquis. That's kind of like the cliffhanger at the end, which is awesome. It's that whole Judas character,
Yeah. And we're going to see a formidable adversary for Sisko in Cal Hudson, who's, is his friend, but also somebody who knows him well, right?
Exactly. That's the key right there. He knows him well. So how do you fight somebody that knows you as well?
Exactly. So it's a good setup. And my only downplay was that there was a lot of dialogue and a lot of introduction of those aliens and stuff that you mentioned earlier. And for a novice like me, it's hard for me to start keeping up with all these names. And I'm like, okay, who matters the most, because I don't know.
It's not as bad as this new Picard series. They say so much mumbo jumbo.
Yeah, we'll get into that.
I'm like, I can't even write all this down. Are you joking? Like, there's even made up languages that a 13-year-old made. There's all these Romulan I mean, woo. So but no, I get
this one was mild compared.
Right.
You're right.
Watching Picard feels like a high school class. Like you're like, okay, so the Sumerians attacked the Babylonians. It was the Hittites. What are you talking about?
It was the cuneiform. They were reading cuneiform. But yeah, so DS9 is now starting to get into the meat of what it's been known for, which is these big battles, these big conflicts, this really intricate storylines and how they interweave together. So we're starting to see the tapestry weave.
Exactly. And Tapestry is another great episode of Next Generation, by the way, which was mentioned. There was a tiny little nod to the Tapestry episode of Next Generation in Picard episode 7, but we'll talk about that another time because we are going to the free-for-all right now on the 7th Rule. Stay tuned. Hey, everybody, and welcome back to the 7th Rule. This is the free-for-all with Heather Jordan and Marie Segal, Rex Wood, Commander Homer Frizzell. We've got Cirroc Lofton as usual. I'm Ryan T. Husk. Now, we're having a lot of fun because Homer is giving us a tour of the Star Trek cruise right now. And he's showing us all the different decks. We just left Torpedo Bay 3.
Hey, look at that, Captain Nog Forever.
What?
Uh-oh.
Wow, look at that.
Oh, yeah, I'm wearing my Captain Nog.
Wow. Oh, is that
your door? Oh, you have flyers.
This is our door.
Mm-hmm. Show it a little longer. Let's get a look at the door again.
Okay.
With it's got the Captain Nog poster. That's amazing.
Now, what's that? A date planner? Is that? What do you write down on that?
That's just a whiteboard.
Schedule.
We just yesterday there was heroes and villains, so I asked about who was their hero, who was their villain, and the answer was Laurel for each. But Ken Mitchell threw an awesome rave last night. It was epic. A rave, that's it. I said rage, didn't I? That's Klingon.
There was a rave last night?
I think
yeah. And Ken Mitchell
Why do I know that name, Ken Mitchell, guys?
He played three different Klingons on Discovery.
Okay.
3. He was
because one's not enough.
Yeah,
he's incredible.
One's not enough.
One is not enough.
We also took a picture with Cirroc. We also took a picture with him and Nikki and Aron before the Deep Space Nine documentary that night, if you'll recall it, at Mann's Chinese Theater.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Great dude.
I do remember.
So,
he's pretty awesome.
Homer, since you're the star of the show today, give us a question that we're all going to answer while you also give us a tour.
Oh, well, that's a lot for me to do all at once. That's good.
And he's waiting for the elevator. You gotta he's gotta think.
Yeah. Oops. I gotta go to.
Deanna Troy's on there with him. Did you see that?
Yeah.
No.
Troy here.
See, told you.
Oh wow.
Doesn't move a whole lot though.
She's see-through.
Well,
so she's on that cruise right now. Is that what's going on?
No, I think it's a picture on the elevator.
Yeah, it's just a man or something.
Oh, I'm breaking.
No, they have stickers on every elevator.
Crap.
So one's Laurel, one is Captain Pike, one's Deanna.
No way, that's cool.
It's really cool.
So since Homer's having paid internet issues,
I gotta go up.
Let's have Anne Marie, Doc Annie, give us a question.
I know
she has one prepared.
Shit, I don't. I mean, so hard. I don't know. I was trying to think of one last night to go with your episode today, and I just couldn't really.
Yeah.
Okay. What about you, Rex?
I knew you were going to do that.
I'm trying to think of a question over here.
It's better because it's probably going to you next.
You guys think of a question. I'm going to try to get some place.
All right, sounds good, Commander Homer.
Heather, I'm passing to you.
No, you can't. I just want to point out that Ryan looks like he's wearing the shirt in the poster that is on Rex's image. Just
I see it. Yeah,
it does.
Oh yeah, you got the same shirt on.
Well, it's the same color. I don't think he's wearing what does it say? Romulan?
Romulan ale.
Yeah.
Romulan ale shirt.
Yeah, the artist just made up those shirts because if you'll notice, Cirroc's got like a gold yellow shirt or something on.
Yeah.
Behind
And I would
Rex.
never wear that with those jeans.
Never. I was thinking along the lines of what is your favorite Star Trek drink?
Okay, that's a solid one. And great question. Go ahead and answer it, Heather.
You know what? I'm just gonna have to point out it's that one that Data says where he's like, it's green.
Oh, the one where he like flicks it?
The one that he says it's vile. Let me have another.
Well, he's with somebody.
Thank you. Have a good night.
And I don't know the name of the drink because I haven't watched the episode, but I just remember seeing it. And then Data, the guy asked him, "What is it?" And Data goes, "It's green."
Okay.
You guys know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, that's from
Rex
an original
does.
Star Trek one too.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's Scotty does it. I don't know what it is, but it's green. You know.
I think he does the same thing though, doesn't he? Does he do it in Picard?
Well, there is at one point where Data does taste a drink, and he says, "Oh, it's." He doesn't say it's vile. He says it's disgusting or it's repulsive. I think is what he says. And they go, "Would you like another one?" He goes, "Please." Because he's just experiencing these for the first time.
Movies where he gets the emotion chip. And
right, exactly.
He gets the emotion chip, and he goes and they've given him drinks, and he's like, "Ew." And he's like, and so Whoopi's there, and Whoopi of course says, "Do you want another one?" And he goes, "Yes, please."
Yeah. Please fill her up as he's gagging. What's your favorite Star Trek drink, Rex?
I can tell you that I would go back to doing Romulan Ale, your shirt, because I can remember in high school when we had our meetings at our clubs, we would make something like Romulan Ale. We would come up with like mixtures of like.
Was it purple drink? It was purple drink, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Little
Everclear, those high school days. But yeah, that would be probably my favorite.
You got it. 6-pack of Romulan Ale for Rex Wood in Vegas. What were you saying, Heather?
I said I want to change my answer.
Oh, son of a...
I know. I want to say that it's the most iconic drink. Earl Grey.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
There you go.
That's what, and I really do drink that in real life, so it works.
What's that? A martini, shaken, not stirred?
No, Earl Grey.
Earl Grey.
So what about you, Anne-Marie? Are you going to say the drink that is...
I have a prop for one of them.
Is this a drink that is...
Wait, you have a prop? Did you say she's a prop?
Oh, you got a prop for it?
Well, first of all, I'm going to say Sumerian Sunset is really my favorite. Often and Lost. However, I just got this for my new kitchen art, which is Klingon blood wine. Ooh. And it's like a vintage alcohol ad. And there's a cute little Klingon.
Nice.
Very cool.
Yes.
So that's a very good one. What about you, Cirroc? Are you partial to Vulcan port or what?
Oh, my favorite drink? It's Rock de Gino.
Nice.
What's that one?
I'm all about the Rock de Gino.
What's that from? Is that from?
I know a lot of
Deep Space Nine.
That's what I was thinking.
It's one of my favorites. It's one of Jake's favorite drinks for some reason.
Yeah.
It's a cappuccino on the rocks.
You can even get the mugs on Amazon now.
It's like a Cardassian coffee. What, Homer? What are we hearing back there?
Okay, so I'm up on the Sun Deck, I think it is, and they're playing Star Trek, one of the J.J. Abrams films.
Anybody there?
It's a sun deck with no sun.
Well, that's because it's later here on the. Actually, this isn't even the East Coast. It's 1 hour past that time zone wise, so Atlantic time zone.
Oh wow,
it's pretty though.
So the sun's already down.
Sun is down. Yeah, we just left St. Thomas, and we're on our way to the Bahamas now.
So
Wow.
you're an hour ahead of us normally.
So it's 6, almost 7 o'clock now.
Yeah, yeah. Okay.
And what's your favorite Star Trek drink, Homer?
So
Franya.
on the menu, They have Ractaginos and they have blood wine. I tried the blood wine, and it's like wine with brandy and other stuff. It wasn't great, but it's still my favorite because I think maybe I got a bad blood wine. So that's what I'm going with.
Bad blood wine.
I've had that blood.
Yeah, there's
Bad
also
blood. Bad blood.
I had a Romulan ale, and it was really, really blue.
You have to have Nog trade that up for
And
you.
I didn't trust it.
It was a Calypso cooler.
It was too blue.
Yeah.
Well, I'm not going to narrate. I thought you were going to say, I thought you were going to quote a Warrior's drink.
Oh, well, no, I'll leave that one for you, just so you keep it regular.
That's very good. Very. Cirroc, Worf is known to love prune juice because when Guinan, Whoopi Goldberg gives Worf some prune juice because he was like having a bad day or whatever it was, and she's like, "Here, try this," and so he sips it and he goes, "A warrior's drink."
Yeah. Especially if you're constipated.
Right. Yeah, which Worf always is, obviously.
He looks like it.
I'm going to throw in
He did kind of look a little constipated.
He did.
He was like
That was the problem. That's why he had such a bad attitude, you know?
I picture Canard tasting like black licorice. So I'm all about
it for sure is black licorice.
Yeah.
I hate black licorice.
What? Doesn't
I hate it too. It's awful.
How is this possible? I thought everybody loved black.
When you drink too many
No,
sambucas,
everybody hates it.
Everybody hates black licorice. It has smell.
Exactly.
Is it just because I'm French that I like black licorice? Maybe.
Maybe.
It reminds me of like a cough medicine or something.
Yeah. There's actually an Italian liquor called Zambuca.
Sambuca!
Right.
I mentioned a drink.
Black licorice, and I love that stuff.
Yes.
I make Sambuca with Coca-Cola, and I call it Coca-Buca.
Yeah, you can actually light it on fire and do the shots.
And you put in coffee beans for good luck.
You know what else you could light on fire? Never mind.
Yeah.
So is it Jägermeister? Jägermeister has licorice.
It's always a good one.
That's right.
Actually, I was just thinking that my 21st birthday, somebody bought me a Jägermeister shot, and it was awful. And I was like,
awful.
they were like, "Do you want another one?" And I was like, "No."
Oh my God. Look at Homer's background right now. Amazing.
We used to do barber shots where you would actually put in a barber chair and they throw you back.
Wow.
It looks like a painting, just like It's,
yeah, it does. Wow.
So for those
are we all going on the cruise next year?
For those of you that are listening and can't see it, Homer is showing us the sunset off of the east side of whichever way the
I think he said St. Thomas.
St. Thomas.
We left St. Thomas. Yeah. A couple, 3-4 hours ago.
Looks great.
Yeah.
So it's 7:00 where you are?
It is.
Mm-hmm.
St. Thomas is beautiful. I've been there.
How many floors is that ship?
11?
It's 13. Yeah. And Cirroc, we call them decks.
Decks.
Yeah.
Decks.
I wasn't hip to it when I first got on board, so it took me a few days, but I got it.
It's called decks. Okay.
Yeah.
Is everything kind of like named like Star Trek, besides the decks? Do they say like, the cargo bay and the bridge and all that kind of cool stuff? 10 forward?
Some of it is. There's not a 10 forward. I guess they did that on previous cruises. So
there's a promenade though, right?
Fresh. There is
there's
promenade.
Always a promenade though, isn't there? On every
this one
cruise ship?
always. I think this one has a promenade. It's like a mall.
I
Tonight is the Gorns Gala, and there is a place that I was just at where Mary Chifo was as Laurel, and it's called Kaplaz, which is like on Cheers. Yeah, so there are all these pictures of Klingon warriors on the wall, and they're in the Cheers poses.
So I'm not sure if we heard Anne-Marie. I'm not sure if we heard Anne-Marie squeal at that, or if somebody has a mouse back there.
I think that was Anne-Marie.
I don't have one. Yeah.
Because I love Mary
everyone knows your name.
You say Quark's Casino?
Yeah, it's been great. Yeah, there's a Quark's Casino as well, and there's a Neelix's Grill.
Ooh, does Neelix's Grill have good food?
Uh-huh.
Does it have good food?
It does, because
There's
it
lots
costs
of Viola
extra.
roots.
Do they have cheese?
Totally not right.
I haven't been into Neelix's grill.
How is the food though on the ship? How's the food been so far?
It's been okay. There's one place that's open almost all the time, and that food's been okay. And then there are some that if you time it out, you can get some good stuff. And that comes with the regular cruise, the Sapphire dining room.
You know, when I went on a cruise, my favorite thing was, I don't know if they have it on your cruise ship, but they had a frozen yogurt machine that was like up like all the time. And I absolutely loved that.
Yeah. There's a softie machine on this.
Yeah.
Hey, Homer, here's another question.
I don't feel like I have to take you to it. Yes.
I like that we're doing rapid fire questions on Homer. I like this gimmick better. Homer, here's the next question for you to handle for us.
Here's one
Which Star Trek actor have you seen the most so far on this?
Ooh, I'm gonna guess Chase.
Oh,
I'm gonna guess Mary.
No,
or Ken.
I think it's Mary. I mean, last night there was that rave, and that thing went maybe 3 hours. It went until 2:30 in the morning. So I got to spend a lot of time with Ken, a lot of time with Mary, and then just randomly have run across Jeffrey Combs quite a bit. I just saw John Delancey a little bit ago in the elevator.
Ooh. Yeah,
talking about this reading that he did. I saw Von Armstrong in Puerto Rico looking at the fortifications there.
Wow.
Yeah, I haven't seen much of Kate. She disembarked earlier today, I think.
Oh, she's only on for like 2 days and then flies off, huh?
Yeah, and then you're talking about Malcolm?
Shatner took over her room, and so he just joined.
Because she doesn't want to take over his room.
No, I wouldn't either.
I don't know. I guess it's a nice room.
So where did he get on?
He would have gotten St. Thomas.
St. Thomas.
Yeah.
So, Rex, do you have a rapid fire question for Homer?
Trivia.
So, out of all is Shatner the only one out of the original cast that's actually there?
Oh, yeah.
Is that it?
There's a guy by the name of Steve Rankin who I think did stunts on the original series, but I don't know in what episodes. But as far as the ones that we would know by name, yes.
Yeah. Okay. Cool.
And next year they already confirmed Walter and George Takei.
Oh, really? So there's another answer.
Yeah. That's cool.
That's right. They're both in for next year, and George Takei is the captain.
My neighbor.
Oh, really? He is? Walter's my neighbor.
2 blocks away.
Heather, do you have another question for Homer?
No, not specifically. I was actually just thinking about a conversation that we had, I think it was last night. I was talking to Homer and Jenna. It might have been 2 days ago. But I asked them, have you guys met up for dinner? And they're like, yeah, we see each other at the parties every night. I'm like, you guys are party animals.
Yeah, there's always a party.
I like Homer keep calling it a rave because I think of him with a glow stick.
Yes.
So the thing is, we did have glow sticks, but we called them time crystals.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Oh, you know
crystals.
what?
Finally,
he was surfing the crowd. We were doing the sticks.
Oh man, that's a wow moment right there for Aaron.
I know you got footage.
It was
a
wow moment.
Tell me you got pictures of that.
I don't have footage. I have pictures.
Okay,
yeah,
pictures.
We gotta see that.
Pictures. You gotta post them to the group.
There's already one. All the Klingons are wearing time shirts. We're posted it this morning. It's amazing.
Oh, is that why? I saw the time shirts, but I didn't understand what it was referencing. I was like, is there another word in the back that I'm not seeing?
I didn't see that one.
That's what it was.
Yeah, they switched into the time shirts after they got going for a while. At first it was House of Coal, I think. Oh, no, House of Core. No, Coal.
Cool.
Anyway, I have a shirt. You should go read it.
Okay.
Yeah, exactly.
Final question for Homer. We got a couple minutes left. This one, all the others I didn't really care what the answer was, but this one I care.
Oh.
Okay.
This one is the real one.
All right.
What are you most looking forward to tomorrow? What event or person or item or thing are you most looking forward to tomorrow?
I have to look. I don't even have the schedule yet for tomorrow.
It's on the whiteboard.
Wow.
It's on that whiteboard. Should have done a close-up on the whiteboard. We would have figured it out.
Yeah. No, today there was a Scotch tasting with Dr. Aaron McDonald that was pretty good.
All right, cool.
And then there is the Gorn Gala that's in a little bit. But tomorrow, I don't know what I have going on. I know I have either tomorrow or Saturday a photo op with Robert Picardo. I'm sure there's another party or two or three. But I have to look at the schedule. I mean, I could look at it on my phone. It's just off by an hour. So you guys keep talking, and I'm going to look.
All right, we got 1 minute left.
I'm so jealous.
Oh, fan.
Discuss amongst yourselves.
And Marie, you going next year?
I'm very much considering it. Tickets go on Monday, and they sell out right away.
So
here's
tomorrow. Tomorrow.
Cirroc, are you going?
Yeah, it's fun. And
hang on.
Only if Rex goes.
Oh, okay. If you're gonna go, I'll work.
We're doing a domino.
Nice, I like that.
Yeah. Peer pressure.
All right, go ahead, Homer. We're ready for you.
Homer's gone.
We're ready for you, Homer. Homer.
It's like
No audio.
The news. You know when they do the news where they're like,
no audio.
next to Homer, and there's a delay. And they're like, yes, Bob.
Homer, can you hear us? Homer?
Just put some words in his mouth.
Blink once for yes, twice for no.
Okay. Well, tomorrow, what I'm most looking forward to. Oh, I just.
There it is.
Oh, internet.
Yeah. Well, if he doesn't come
so
back.
Marina is on the cruise, or she's not on the cruise?
She is.
Just using
She is. Yes. And apparently she's the star of the cruise, according to everybody.
Oh, man.
She and Mary Cheapo, obviously.
Homer, can you hear us? Homer? Oh, man, we're going to be stuck in.
Oh, I think he's having problems with his headphones.
Okay.
There's his finger.
Oh, yeah, now he puts his headphones on.
He's going to do an interpretive dance.
We're in the trunk.
All right.
This is how I used to do the podcast.
Homer, last try. Can you hear us, Homer?
In the trunk. Stuck in the trunk.
Aaron used to hate that.
Yeah.
I love those episodes.
Homer's just about to like throw his phone.
He's done.
Yeah, Homer, you can't hear us? You're done? Okay. Well, then I guess we got to go.
Problems with his headphones.
Stay tuned next week to find out Homer's answer to the question we're dying to know. Thank you, Commander Homer. Thank you, Heather Jordan and Marie Segal. Rex Wood, Cirroc Lofton. By the way, Rex Wood is looking very dapper in his
super sharp
outfit.
He's talking away down there.
Also, our associate producers, Imo Radka, Rex Wood, Dennis Koch, Homer Frizzell again, Eve England, Kat R. King, Yvette Blackmon, and a nice lady known as Marie Segal. Thank you all very much. And always remember the 7th rule. Watch. Homer's going to be like, hello? Right?